Welcome to Whispering Pages. If you're here tonight, you've chosen something rare, to end your day not in the noise of the world, but in the company of a good idea. And tonight's idea is almost 2,000 years old. Yet somehow, it might be the most quietly urgent thing you'll hear all week. Before we get there, let's just arrive for a moment. Notice the sounds in the room around you. Maybe it's completely quiet, or maybe there's the soft hum of the house settling, the distant sound of traffic, the rhythm of your own breath. You don't need to change any of it. Just notice it. Let it remind you, you are here, not out there. You here. Let your body be heavy. Not tense, not restless, St heavy. Let the surface beneath you hold you see. Completely. You don't need to hold yourself up right now. And if the day left its marks, an unfinished conversation, a worry you've been carrying, something you forgot to do or said wrong, let it sit beside you rather than inside you. It'll still be there in the morning, if it needs to be. But for now, none of it is required. Here's something worth knowing as you settle in. The window before sleep is one of the most receptive states your brain enters all day. What you hear here, in this quiet, tends to consolidate more deeply into memory than almost anything you absorb in the hurry of the afternoon. You're not just resting, you're letting something land. Tonight's book is called Meditations, written by the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius sometime in the 2nd century AD. It was never meant to be published. It was never meant to be read by anyone other than himself, a private journal of a man trying, every day, to be better than his worst impulses. A man with all the power in the world, writing in secret, reminding himself to be humble. So let's begin. Get comfortable. Close your eyes if you'd like. And let's whisper through this one together. Imagine you are the most powerful person on earth. Not in theory. In fact, you command the largest military in the known world. Your word is law across 30 million people. Generals and senators bow when you enter. You have access to every pleasure, every comfort, every luxury that the ancient world can offer. You were never supposed to be emperor. You were quiet, bookish, philosophical by nature, but you were chosen anyway, trained, shaped, and placed on the throne. Now imagine that you use none of that power to build yourself a monument. You use none of it to indulge yourself. You don't write a memoir about your victories or a philosophy book for posterity. Instead, you write something to yourself. Private notes, in Greek, scrawled between military campaigns in a tent on the northern frontier. Notes that say, essentially, remember who you're supposed to be. Don't get distracted. Don't lose your temper. Do the right thing, even when no one is watching. Especially when no one is watching. This is the book we're sitting with tonight. Marcus Aurelius was born in Rome on April 26, in the year 121 AD. His real name was Marcus Annius Verus, from a noble family with deep roots in Roman politics. His father died when he was young, and the Emperor Hadrian, who noticed something exceptional in the boy, effectively set him on a path toward eventual leadership. He was educated by some of the finest philosophers and teachers in the empire, and trained in what was called Stoic philosophy, a school of thought that would become the spine of everything he wrote. The Stoics believed that virtue was the only true good, that everything else, wealth, fame, power, even health, was, in the grand scheme, indifferent. What mattered was how you used your mind and will, because those were the only things truly under your control. Pain was not an evil. Death was not a tragedy. Injustice done to you was not a reason to become unjust in return. The Stoic ideal was a person who could remain calm, clear, and purposeful no matter what the world threw at them. Marcus spent decades trying to live that ideal while simultaneously running the most complex administrative state the Western world had yet seen. He waged wars he didn't want to wage. He watched children die, several of his own among them. He dealt with a colleague who tried to steal his throne. He governed through plague, famine, and political betrayal. And through all of it, he kept these private notes. 12 books of them. Not structured like a philosophy text, not arranged like an argument. Just fragments. Reflections. Reminders to himself. The first book is unlike the rest. In it, Marcus catalogues every person who shaped him, his grandfather, who taught him gentleness, his mother, who showed him generosity and simplicity, his teachers, each credited with a specific gift. One gave him the habit of honest inquiry, another, the practice of not defending himself when criticized, another, an aversion to flattery. It's a deeply moving exercise in gratitude. Before he writes a single word of philosophy, he stops and says, "I did not become who I am alone. I was made by these people. Let me remember them." And then, beginning in Book 2, the philosophy begins in earnest. But it's not cold or theoretical. It reads more like a man arguing with himself, coaxing himself, scolding himself gently, reminding himself of things he knows but keeps forgetting, because that's the nature of wisdom. You know it in the morning and lose it by afternoon. So you write it down and read it again. The central tension running through all 12 books is this: life is short, and most of what we spend it worrying about doesn't matter. And yet, precisely because it's short, and because other people are counting on us, we must not waste it. We must act. We must show up. We must do our work. At the very opening of Book 2, Marcus writes to himself, "Remember how long you have already delayed. Remember how many times you have been given the chance to do what matters and let it pass. Time is running out." Not as a threat, but as a clarification. Everything looks different when you hold it up against your own mortality. This idea, that death is not the enemy but the clarifier, runs like a river through the entire book. One of the most practical ideas in the Meditations is something Marcus calls the discipline of perception. It's the practice of seeing things as they actually are, rather than as your emotions or your ego tell you they are. We catastrophize constantly. We take small slights and inflate them into evidence that the world is against us. We take a temporary setback and tell ourselves it means we've failed, that things will never improve, that we're less capable than we thought. Marcus would call all of that commentary, unnecessary noise layered on top of a simple fact. His remedy is almost shockingly plain. When something happens, when you're insulted, or you lose something important, or a plan falls apart, name it plainly, without any emotional elaboration. Don't say, "My reputation is ruined, I've lost everything, people will think less of me." Say, "Someone said something unkind. A project I was working on did not go as I intended." Full stop. Notice how much suffering is not in the event itself but in the story you told yourself about the event. This isn't emotional suppression. Marcus doesn't say feel nothing. He says, don't add unnecessary suffering to whatever you're already experiencing. If something hurts, let it hurt. But don't also torture yourself with imaginary futures and invented meanings. The thing that happened is the thing that happened. Your response to it is yours to choose. He extends this into one of the book's most recurring themes, other people. Marcus had to deal constantly with people who were selfish, dishonest, ungrateful, politically treacherous, and occasionally violent. As emperor, he couldn't simply avoid them. So he developed a way of thinking about them that let him act justly without being destroyed by frustration. He reminded himself, over and over, that people who do wrong are doing so out of ignorance, not malice. No one freely chooses to be wicked if they truly understand that wickedness corrodes them. The person who deceives, who betrays, who manipulates, they believe, in some distorted way, that it's helping them. They simply haven't seen clearly yet. This doesn't mean you allow harm to continue. Marcus was no pacifist. He corrected people, enforced laws, made difficult decisions. But he tried to do all of it without contempt, without anger. He saw anger as the enemy inside, more dangerous than any external opponent, because anger fogs the mind, makes you cruel, makes you act in ways you'll regret and that will cost you the very thing you're trying to protect. Book 4 contains one of the most beautiful passages in the whole work. Marcus asks himself, why do you keep running off in search of retreat? To the mountains, the coast, the countryside? He says this honestly. He himself was prone to longing for escape. And then he answers his own question. The best retreat, he says, is right here, within yourself. A person who has their inner life in order can find peace in the middle of a campaign, in the middle of a difficult meeting, in the middle of a sleepless night. You carry your refuge with you. You don't need different circumstances, you need a different quality of attention. The practice he describes is almost meditative. When you're overwhelmed, withdraw, not physically, but inward. Recall a few simple truths, that most things are outside your control and you needn't exhaust yourself over them, that other people's judgments of you are their business, not yours, that the world is changing constantly and whatever is troubling you now will soon be a different situation entirely. Return to these truths the way you'd return to a steady breath. Then go back out into the world. Book 5 opens with one of the most quoted passages in the entire text. Marcus reminding himself, on some apparently resistant morning, to get out of bed. He argues with his own reluctance. Every living thing, he says, does the work it was made for. The bee makes honey. The ant works. The vine bears grapes. And you were made to think, to act, to serve. So why are you lying here? It's not a harsh self-criticism. It reads more like a friend who knows you well, nudging you gently. You know why you're here. Get up and do it. What's striking about this is that the man writing it was emperor. He did not have to get up if he didn't want to. He had every material reason to linger. And yet he felt the same pull of inertia that everyone does on a difficult morning, and he met it the same way we all have to, with a quiet argument that the work matters and you are capable of it. One of the ideas Marcus returns to most persistently is what later thinkers would call the view from above. He asks himself to imagine looking down at human life from a great height, not from cruelty or detachment, but to see things in their true proportion. All the ambitions, rivalries, dramas, and status games that consume people's lives, how do they look from 100 years away? From 1,000? He was deeply aware that even the greatest emperors before him had been mostly forgotten. The men who had seemed to run the world, whose names were on every Roman's lips, had faded into obscurity within a generation or two. This wasn't meant to be depressing. Marcus meant it as a form of liberation. If your reputation will be forgotten, why spend your life managing it? If your achievements will eventually dissolve, why make achievement your reason for living? The Stoic answer is, live for virtue. Live for the quality of your choices in the present moment. That is the one thing that cannot be taken from you and the one thing you will never regret when you look back. Book 6 and Book 7 are the most fragmentary sections of the Meditations. They read like a personal notebook at its most raw, brief reminders, quick observations, a line or two before he had to return to some military or administrative matter. What emerges from them is a portrait of a man in motion, never quite finished with his own education, always finding new angles on old ideas. A few themes surface repeatedly. One is the practice of accepting what happens. Not passively, not lifelessly, but with the understanding that the universe is a single interconnected whole, and what befalls you is part of a larger pattern. The Stoics called this amor fati, love of fate. Not tolerance of fate. Not resigned endurance of fate. Genuine acceptance, even appreciation, for the fact that this is your life, these are your circumstances, and the person you become in response to them is the real content of your existence. Another recurring theme is service. Marcus was deeply convinced that human beings exist for each other. Reason, he argued, is the one thing all people share. And if reason is universal, then what reason points toward is also universal: cooperation, mutual care, the subordination of pure self-interest to the good of the community. He was the head of an empire, yet he thought of himself as something closer to a servant, not in a falsely humble way, but in the practical sense that his decisions existed to benefit others, not himself. His power was a form of responsibility, not a privilege. He also writes extensively about time in these middle books. Not about managing it, that's a modern preoccupation, but about understanding it correctly. Time, he says, is a river of vanishing moments. The past is gone and cannot be touched. The future hasn't arrived and may never arrive in the form you expect. The only real possession you have is now. Not tomorrow's opportunity. Not yesterday's regret. The present action, the present choice, the present quality of attention, this is where your whole life actually lives. Books 8 and 9 are where Marcus confronts his own failures most directly. There's something almost startling about him. He doesn't write like a man who has made it. He writes like a man who is still in process, still catching himself in vanity, in irritability, in the temptation to seek praise or avoid discomfort. He notes, in Book 8, that he is already too old to claim that he has lived as a true philosopher. Too many years have gone by where he acted in ways contrary to his ideals. And rather than collapsing into regret over that, he pivots immediately. Well then, for whatever time remains, let that time be spent rightly. It's one of the most quietly courageous things in the book. You can grieve what you've wasted and still choose what comes next. Book 9 opens with the observation that injustice is a form of impiety, not just because it harms others, but because it cuts the person who commits it off from the natural order of things. Marcus believed that the universe had a kind of moral grain to it. Acting against others was acting against the grain of reality itself. This isn't a legalistic view of morality. It's something more intimate. When you are unjust, you damage yourself. You cut yourself off from the cooperative nature that makes human life possible and meaningful. Book 10 opens with one of the most tender passages in all of the Meditations. Marcus addresses his own soul directly. He says, "The time will come, I believe, when you will be simple, clear, more open than the body that now encloses you." He imagines a future state of greater clarity, not necessarily an afterlife in the way Christians would understand it, but something like the fulfillment of what his soul had always been trying to become. He admits he doesn't know exactly what happens after death. What he does know is that death itself is natural, and that a life well lived needn't fear it. The Stoics took a specific view on death that Marcus absorbed completely. Dying is simply the dissolution of the arrangement that makes you you. The elements return to the larger whole from which they came. Nothing is destroyed, everything is transformed. And when you understand this clearly, really understand it, not just intellectually but in your gut, then the fear of death loses much of its power. What you have feared was a kind of ending. What actually happens is more like a rejoining. Book 11 is where Marcus returns to the qualities of a mature mind. He describes the rational soul as something capable of seeing itself from the outside, able to examine its own thinking, identify its own errors, choose its own direction. This self-awareness is what separates human beings from everything else in nature. And it carries a special responsibility. If you can see yourself clearly, you have no excuse for remaining who you were. Growth is always available. The direction is always accessible. What's required is the willingness to turn toward it. He also returns, in Book 11, to the practice of dealing with difficult people. He suggests something almost counterintuitive. When someone treats you badly, try to imagine the full context of their life. The fears they carry, the failures that have shaped them, the false beliefs that make their behavior feel rational to them. This isn't about excusing harm. It's about preserving your own equanimity. When you understand why someone acts as they do, even if you still need to correct or confront them, you can do it without hatred. And hatred, Marcus believed, always costs the person who harbors it more than the person it's directed at. Throughout the meditations, Marcus never claims to have achieved what he's describing. This is part of what makes the book so affecting. He's not teaching from a position of mastery. He's writing these things precisely because he hasn't mastered them yet, because he keeps needing to be reminded. He knows the arguments for patience, and yet he still feels irritation. He knows the arguments against vanity, and yet he still catches himself caring what people think. He knows that anger corrodes the person who holds it, and yet some mornings he wakes up already angry. The philosophy isn't a cure. It's a discipline. Something practiced daily, imperfectly, with hope. This quality of the book, its honest struggle rather than its confident pronouncements, is what separates it from most philosophy. Most philosophical writing is performed. This is a private conversation between a man and his better self. And that authenticity is available to you, reading it almost 2,000 years later, in a completely different world, because the distance between who we are and who we want to be hasn't changed. Let's take a moment now to be honest about what this book is not. Meditations is not a how-to guide. It doesn't give you steps. It doesn't tell you what to do in any specific situation. It offers a way of seeing, and developing that way of seeing is slow, lifelong work. If you're looking for quick answers or a clear framework, this book will frustrate you. What it offers instead is depth. Repeated reading. Ideas that land differently depending on where you are in life. It's also worth noting that some of Marcus's specific philosophical commitments, his belief that the universe is a rational, providential whole, his view that the soul might be absorbed back into a universal substance after death, are not things most modern readers will simply accept. The cosmology is ancient, but the ethics it produces, the emphasis on self-examination, on service, on equanimity, on the discipline of attention, translates across every century and context. One honest limitation of the Meditations as a text, because it was private and never edited for an audience, it's repetitive. The same ideas appear in dozens of variations across 12 books. For some readers this feels meditative, useful to encounter the same truth from a slightly different angle, the way a musician practices the same scale. For others, especially those hoping to extract information efficiently, it can feel like wading through fog. Book 12, the final book, has a quality of arrival about it. Marcus returns one last time to the essential question: what does it mean to live rightly? And his answer, distilled across 2 decades of private reflection, is almost simple. Be honest. Accept what you cannot change. Do the work in front of you. Treat others as fellow members of the same great human community. Let go of what the world thinks of you. And find, in whatever time remains, the freedom that comes from asking very little of the world and a great deal of yourself. He was 58 when he died. Whether or not he felt he had succeeded at any of this, we can't know. What we have is the evidence of a lifetime of trying. So as you drift towards sleep tonight, let that be the thought you carry. Not whether you have succeeded, whether you are trying. The Meditations is not a book about arriving. It's a book about the endless, honest, worthwhile practice of returning to your values, to your purpose, to the best version of yourself that you can manage today. Sleep well, and we'll see you at Whispering Pages for the next one.